On tonight's episode of Three Bro Sports, brought to you by the one and only Anchor FM. It's a doozy in the NFL world as there's breaking news going on as we're recording this Friday morning. Thank goodness we did, as a lot of news has been circulating throughout the NFL world. We're also going over the Week 16 matchup, how our first show on TV Delmarva ended up. Not to mention, we got to go over the playoff implications as the Oakland Raiders, there's a chance they can make it in, ladies and gents. And no, I'm not kidding. Also going over one of the biggest games in all of the NFL so far with the Niners Seahawks. And also you can't forget about those toilet bowl matchups as well. But first,
shut up and sit down.
And welcome to another Three Bros episode. I'm Connor.
I'm Don Julio.
As you can tell, Calvin is missing today. He was unable to come and record with us. And it sucks, but the show must go on as we keep this up every single week. And if you could tell by the video, we'll be on YouTube real soon. We're not at the studio. We're actually at Don Julio's house.
Yep.
So thank you for at least bringing me over for this.
Yep. We're at a discreet location. Can't reveal that, but just know that we're hard at work in the laboratory.
Yes, we are.
We still haven't gotten cardboard cut out of Calvin yet, so
we're working on it. We're working on it.
it.
Give us a little bit of time. Things will be going up. So there's been some breaking news in the NFL world that I would be remiss not to go over. Antonio Brown, as everybody thought he wouldn't be coming back to the league, this morning, Friday morning, December 27th, 2019, is working out with the New Orleans Saints. Now, Brett, I think you have to take more offense to this as well, because let's just say he does sign, and with the way the playoffs are going, as a Vikings fan, the Saints would play the Vikings. Now, there is some obstacles to face, as he would be on the commissioner's list of the allegations that have been placed towards him. But how would you feel knowing that AB and Michael Thomas are going up against your Minnesota Vikings?
Well, I think we're already going to have a rough enough time covering Michael Thomas as it is. You add AB to that situation, and it definitely doesn't help. Xavier Rhodes hasn't been playing as well as he had in the past few years, and Mike Hughes is playing well, but I don't see them slowing down Michael Thomas. And you add AB to that scenario, and it's just a little bit of overkill, I think.
Yeah, and it's really tough. And having a quarterback like Drew Brees, what other perfect quarterback could you have for those two receivers to use them properly? It's almost just a perfect mixture for them. And it scares the bejesus out of me as a 49er fan, knowing that may be a team we may end up having to face.
Yep.
Now, I at least want to get that breaking news out of the way. Start off on the podcast with the hot stuff. Now I want to kind of go in a little bit to last week as we recorded our first ever Three Bros Sports TV show on TV Delmarva, just tvdelmarva.com. We even have our own section. If you missed the show, there's a link to the YouTube video. If needed, if you ever want to, I could send you guys personally, if you ever email us at threebrosportscast@gmail.com. I'll send you the MP3 link as well if you want to listen to it. As we did have it on Anchor for a little bit, but it kind of seemed a little bit as overkill as, well, the link is on the website, and I want to at least leave the show to them. I don't want to take over it myself. But, Brett, how did the show kind of go for you? How do you feel after it?
It was fun. I mean, it's nice recording in a real studio.
Yeah.
As much as I like recording in my living room, it's fun. And, it'll be even better once we can get Calvin physically in the room.
Yeah.
And have the actual, Three Bros Sports on there. But it was definitely fun, and given our takes, we talked a little bit more NBA on there. So if that's what you're looking for, go ahead and check that out on YouTube or whatever it is. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, it really is, especially just for myself at 18. I mean, being a broadcaster for a couple years, working my way up, having the internship at ESPN, moving to TV Delmarva. Everything's been moving real fast in the year of 2019 as we're getting close to the end of the year. But on the Three Bro Sports Show on TV Delmarva, that's going to be focusing a lot more onto the NBA side of things. As for NFL, we record on Saturday. So after Sunday, the show is kind of irrelevant on what we're talking about for the picks, for games, for players. But for the NBA, we're able to stretch it out a little bit farther, so it helps us get more airtime as we'd like to be on the air more often. So instead of having it just on a Saturday, Sunday, we could be expanding it to a Tuesday or a Thursday. We could go through the whole week. So that's kind of why we want to go with the NBA a little more. And also, that's my main sport. If we go NBA, MLB, NFL, that's kind of the order of my knowledge for it. NBA is right up there. The MLB is just right below, and then the NFL is right there. So my knowledge for NFL so far, just wait until you start hearing me talk about for the NBA. Just wait for it. But it was a really good show. We're going to have Calvin come in real soon. Next week's going to be a little different of the way things are going to be set up. I haven't even told Brett about it, but it's going to be a little different. So please tune in on that. We'll be posting on our Twitter account or on my social media at Connor Bergen on Instagram. I always will be updating everybody on what's going on with the show. And just thanks for the early support so far. But let's now get into Week 16, as that was the week of the most highly anticipated matchup of the Tank Bowl. Or no, not the Tank Bowl, the Toilet Bowl matchup. We're going to have to edit that. The Toilet Bowl matchup. And the biggest game was the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. Now, this was a real fun game to watch as Ryan Fitzmagic decided to go off. He threw over 400, almost 420 yards, one short, 4 touchdowns. Andy Dalton threw in 4 touchdowns as well. But in the end, in overtime, the Dolphins were barely able to pull it out. Now, Brett, what were your thoughts on that game?
I mean, I predicted it correct for once. I said Fitzmagic was going to go off, and he did. I mean, 31 for 52, 419, 4 touchdowns. I mean, you throw the ball 52 times, you got 1 interception. I think you can get away with that. I mean, that's a pretty good ratio in my book. You know, it is just like I've been saying the whole year. Cincinnati's defense is terrible, and I knew that this was going to happen, but I was surprised. The Dolphins did go off, and the Cincinnati Bengals scored 23 points in the fourth quarter and forced it into overtime, and, you know, they almost took my correct prediction away from me. You know, they tried. The football gods don't like me to be right, but nope, Fitzmagic sealed the deal for me. So.
It's been a little bit of a rough 2019 year for you, Brett. But
I don't even know what my record is at this point. I'd be surprised if I was over 10.
I've been on a complete cold streak. Calvin's been on the hot streak. So once I went on my cold streak, I'm like, screw the prediction standings. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just a game. It doesn't matter.
I don't even remember what we're at. I'd have to go back and listen.
All I know is I was 11 for 12 at one point. Calvin was 10 for 12, and I know that flipped because on the Thanksgiving matchups, I was wrong on everything Calvin was right about. So everything flip-flops. So Calvin, I know you're going to be listening, buddy. Just take your crown and just get out. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But speaking of teams that have been on the rough side so far, we got to go over to the Dallas Cowboys game, losing 17-9 to the Eagles. This game is the biggest, what the hell are you doing? I don't understand. This Cowboys team is talented on all levels, but they can't get it together. Brett, what the hell is going on?
I mean, I don't know how you don't score a single touchdown against that Eagles defense that has made every team that's played against them look more competent than they should. I mean, you got the Redskins offense, put Dwayne Haskins against that defense, and he almost looks competent. I mean, there's nothing you can really say. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, you know, I always see Skip Bayless saying he's looking like he's running through some Cabo sand out there, and I would have to agree with him on this. You know, he has looked slow a lot more than he's looked explosive like he has in the past, and there's really nothing you can say. I mean, a loss like this, I mean, a close game, he couldn't even put up a touchdown.
Oh, he couldn't. In this game, you were talking about this earlier, how Ezekiel Elliott started to look a little better. It didn't look like he was going through the Cabo sand. Then he just kind of regressed again. I don't know where this team is at. It just seems as if everybody's so money hungry.
And the Dallas Cowboys are driving down. You know, they're about to get back in the game, and Ezekiel Elliott has a nice run, runs it down to the goal line, but guess what he does on third down? He taps out. He says he's tired. I mean, you're paying this guy all this money. He should be in shape enough to be on the field in these situations that the team needs him, and you want to put, Pollard back there, a rookie. I don't know what to say, honestly.
Yeah, I really don't either. I mean, 13 carries of 47 yards in total. I mean, this guy boasted that, it doesn't matter, I'm in Cabo. I'm ready for any games. Screw training camp. Who needs that? I'm fine all on my own. Don't you worry. But having to tap out like that. Also, speaking of guys who tapped out, I know we're talking about the teams that have been struggling, but I at least need to throw this out there. Calling an audible right now. Jalen Ramsey. He decided to tap out at the end of that 49ers-Rams game on Saturday night, which made me as a Niner fan happy, but also really concerned. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but Jalen Ramsey, he almost caused Sean McVay to, lose himself. You could see his face.
There was definitely something there. I mean, he must have thought that the safety was going to come over and cover that guy. I don't know what he was thinking.
This isn't Jacksonville,
or
buddy.
Just, he had a J.R. Smith moment, total mind lapse, and it is what it is. But I mean, it made some funny internet content.
Yeah, it did. Sure. And sorry, you're gonna hear me coughing a little congested today. I've been a little under the weather.
That's why we're sitting so far apart, because I don't want to get sick.
No, it's not contagious or anything. I promise. It's just kind of that runny nose, and it's like if it kind of drips, you get that kind of cough. It's a little annoying. It's like becoming a pet peeve of mine right now. It's basically done, but it's just. You're on that final stage of it where you feel good. It's just you can't get rid of. There's just the final thing, and that was a great way to end up spending Christmas.
Typical wintertime BS.
And speaking of Christmas, I know we'll get back into the football things, but Brett, how was your holiday? I didn't even get to ask you.
My holiday was good. I mean, I did have to work on Christmas Eve, which kind of stinks, but my family did, bring me some dinner, which was nice of them. So shout out to them if they're listening.
Shout out to the fam. It's for the
culture. Shout out to the fam, and Christmas Day was good. Spent it with family, and it was just a good time.
And did Santa get you anything real special?
Santa got me this cool bottle opener. It's like a you put it. It looks like a salt shaker. And you put it on top of the bottle, and you just press it down. And
wow! So you're gonna use that for all the Coca-Cola, root beer, and Sprite glass bottles, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page here.
Yep.
All right. Now going back to the struggling teams, as I want to stall this a little bit as we have to go into your Vikings. I'm sorry. It was a rough game Monday night against Green Bay, and we were talking a little off air. You had some real good information about it. It was tough. What could you make of it as a Vikings fan?
Well, the Minnesota Vikings were really missing Dalvin Cook. And what was the guy on the Packers defense? I got to find his name here.
Smith.
Zadarius Smith went off. I mean, he was looking like he earned his contract last night, that's for sure. He made
the Packers do not pay anybody.
No.
Zadarius Smith, he got a nice contract.
Yeah.
And he's made every penny of it worth it for the Packers.
Yeah, he really exposed our tackle, Riley Reif. And, Aaron Rodgers played a pretty rough game. I mean, he didn't complete a pass more than 10 yards until the third or fourth quarter. I mean, and he didn't throw a single touchdown. He had that interception. I mean, this game was there for Minnesota. The Packers didn't play a good game by any means, but the interesting thing, just to sum up the Vikings offense struggle, they were 4 for 15 on third down, and they only converted 7 first downs on 13 possessions with 139 yards of offense, and their longest drive was 31 yards. So that, I don't really have to say anything more than that. They couldn't run the ball, and Kirk Cousins couldn't do his play action without having Dalvin Cook back there, so they weren't, scared of the run, so they didn't, sell out to stop that, and it was
it's tough.
A long game, that was for sure. I don't even think I finished watching it.
Yeah, I didn't finish watching the Kings Timberwolves game that happened last night. I even texted you beforehand saying, I don't care if your Timberwolves lost 12 in a row. You're going to end up beating my Kings. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
but
that was a bad game.
It's tough for Kirk Cousins, 122 yards on 31 attempts. That's just rough in itself.
Well, he's never going to, be your number one option in a game. He needs that running game for the defense to be focused on for him to make plays over the top. And when you don't have that, he's going to struggle for sure.
Yeah, and that's been a big thing for teams of the depth at the running back position because it's so valuable for a lot of teams who are doing this play action based offense. And when you lose Dalvin Cook, you see the difference, and you even lose Amir Abdullah. I mean, the 49ers have been through that as well, but they've had a really talented backup every single time who could fill in the gap or do something a little different to help the offense in a certain area. And I think a lot of teams have to be looking forward to that of just adding that depth in because there's a lot of undrafted free agents that you could be able to pick up to fill that. But it's just tough of you take a gamble. If it doesn't work, too bad. Just go to the next one. But we'll see what the Vikings are going to do as they still are in the playoffs. They're still in, so we'll get to watch our teams, except Calvin's, in the postseason.
Hey, they did have a big win against Seattle, so.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And
give
that
them
was
that.
very helpful for my 49ers.
I'll give them that.
And we've been talking about teams that have been struggling. One team that's been struggling has been the Atlanta Falcons. And it's made almost no sense to me as of why they're struggling. And I've been saying Dan Quinn needs to be fired. But just because I'm a podcast host doesn't mean that I'm going to be right on that, as it's now been reported Friday morning as well, 2 stories. Dan Quinn is going to end up staying. Even Matt Patricia is going to end up staying as the Lions head coach. Why does Dan Quinn deserve another chance? Do you have any explanation for this?
I mean, it's got to be based on how they've been playing recently. They beat the 49ers, and they've been playing better. I have a feeling that 49ers game probably has a lot to do with it. And it's not – it's hard to say that Dan Quinn is responsible for all of that, but who are they going to hire? They probably didn't think then that there was anyone to hire that would be better to be there. I mean, they're going to give him another year and see what happens. And probably if he doesn't produce results next year, they'll move on. But I don't think that they were quite necessarily probably had a guy in mind that they wanted over just sticking with their guy right now.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're getting these wins now. It's because teams are under-preparing for you guys. So you guys are coming in as a sleeper team, and that's fine. But when teams were prepared for you, thinking that this was going to be the year you guys go back to the old version of the Falcons, like I remember so many reporters saying before the year, "Oh, Atlanta's back, baby. This team is going to be going right back to where it was with Kyle Shanahan." And look what they did. They did nothing. Diddly squat.
Played terrible against the Vikings in week 1. I remember that.
Zip. They did nothing. Matt Ryan was the king of garbage time. It was like watching Blake Bortles out there. Like, he does awful for the first 3 quarters, but the fourth quarter, if you're down 27, he'll make it down 12. He'll work a little bit of extra magic. It just doesn't make any sense. And speaking of weird magic, the Oakland Raiders, 7-8, they were 6-4 at one point. They looked like, and they were going into the New York Jets. They looked like everything was ready for them. They ended up losing 35-0. They got blown out the water. They're 7-8. There's a chance they can make it into the playoffs. And now let me explain to you how this is possible. Last week, they had to end up beating the Chargers. The Baltimore Ravens had to beat the Browns. The Jets, out of all teams, go into Pittsburgh. They have to win. The Saints have to beat the Titans. I was wrong on that selection. I thought the Titans could have been able to pull that off. And the Colts had to beat the Panthers. All those happen. So now this is way more realistic of a possibility. So the Raiders have to end up beating the Broncos, which I see happening. The Browns beating the Bengals, there's a possibility. The Ravens beating the Steelers, Texans over the Titans, and the Colts over the Jaguars. That is really realistic. And now if the Raiders don't mess it up, I see all 4 of those teams ending up pulling this off. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, every matchup you just said. I mean, I would take the Colts over the Jaguars. I would take the Ravens over the Steelers any day. Probably Texans over Titans, unless, Houston sits some players. But, yeah, I mean, they could be in there. And who knows, maybe they'll play spoiler or someone in the playoffs. But
I don't see that one. That's a far-fetched one, but I like where you're going with it. I like the idea.
Happen. Who knows what could happen?
You want to really speak into existence. I can agree with that. And it just feels so weird for the last Raiders game of the year of how the fans are kicking seats in because they ended up losing to the Jags. This team doesn't deserve it. I'm sorry. This owner is so spineless. I don't want to ever see him succeed. And I'm sorry for the Raider fans, as you guys have been through thick and thin. I'm a Sacramento Kings fan. I know what it's like, okay? My team hasn't been in the playoffs for over 14 years now. And it's going to be a longer time because we're going to end up blowing things up because this team is so incompetent. Buddy Hield needs to get his booty out of Sacramento forever. But this team, the Raiders, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is going to be a tough game. Josh Jacobs is out. So you're losing your star running back, who I believe could have been Rookie of the Year. There's still a possibility he could be. But it just seems so weird to actually see the Oakland Raiders in the playoffs. With John Gruden at head coach, and Derek Carr is still your quarterback, and he's done nothing like he did back in 2016. This almost seems like black magic, really. Kind of like the football gods at the very end. They're like, you know what? We'll give the Raiders something.
Well, if it's going to be one of those teams that, surprises everyone and has that black magic moment that you mentioned, why not the Raiders,
Oh, it really could be. It really could be. And there's one other team that I at least want to say kind of has a little black magic to it. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. Buffalo Bills. Now, that is a team that they haven't been able to beat the right teams. Like, they lost to the Patriots both times, but it was a close game. They lost to the Ravens. Close game again. They're like the 1-inch team. They're like 1 inch away from being able to pull it off. One play from being able to be the upset. I think come playoff time, they could end up flipping it around. Do you think there's a possibility for the Bills, or am I kind of just being crazy because I've been sick for a while?
I think there's a possibility. I mean, they've played well all year, and their defense has played well, and Josh Allen has played really good at moments, and, they could play spoiler, but we're just going to have to see. I mean, they hung in there with the Patriots until the end. They lost by a touchdown, so we'll see what happens.
All right, now going into the playoff picture, there's been some games that I think there's actually a real upset. Now, one of them, we talked about the Eagles a little earlier. They're going to, if the playoff rankings stand the way that they are, they will go up against Seattle at home. I believe there is actually a chance the Eagles could play upset. Here's why. The Seahawks went up against the Cardinals and couldn't do diddly squat, zilch, against Kyler Murray. Now, I don't think Wentz is as athletic as Kyler Murray. It's not that big of a running offense, but I believe that there is a door wide enough for the Eagles to be able to get through with the Seahawks. As the Seahawks, even against Carolina, they had that game sealed off, but then they stopped caring throughout the second half, and Carolina almost made a comeback to win that game. There is definitely a chance for the Eagles to be able to pull this off. Am I being crazy, or?
I don't think so. I would have to take Seattle in that game. I just don't think that the Eagles have played well enough for me to confidently say that they can win. Now, it is in Philly, so that helps. But I just don't think that playoff Russell Wilson is going to lose to the Eagles. I just don't see that happening. And
Seahawks defense.
Seahawks defense, you're right, but Carson Wentz and the Eagles offense hasn't been that great this year. I mean, they only put up 17 against Dallas. I mean, if you want to talk about last week's matchups, that's not anything to write home about. So we'll see.
Yeah, and now the second one in the AFC, as I kind of already went over the Bills, I think they could be a sleeper. That's why I actually have projected to be able to beat the Texans come playoff time. Titans and Chiefs. Now, right now, it could be the Steelers, it could be the Raiders, but right now it's the Titans. So I'll stick with them. Now, I don't see the chances being as high as the Eagles beating the Seahawks, but I feel like there could be like a small little sliver that Ryan Tannehill has some magic stored inside of him this year. It's kind of like the one-year magic. Everything goes away like Ryan Fitzpatrick. That they could be able to upset the Chiefs. I don't see it happening as much, but I at least want to throw it out there into the world. So if it does happen, I can come back to this podcast and be like, hey, I said it. Where's Stephen A? What you got to say, buddy? But is there a chance that the Titans can pull this off? I mean, they've been hot. They ended up losing their last game to New Orleans, but there could be a chance, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are all playoff teams, so I would say that there's a chance for every one of these teams to win when they play each other, but I think it'll be tough with the Chiefs' defense has played well in the last few weeks. They've held out their last couple opponents like under 10 points, I think it was. So I know that Bears, I mean, their offense has been garbage, but I think that they could. I think it'll definitely be tough with Patrick Mahomes, but we'll see what happens. The Titans have played well. I would give them a better chance to upset the Chiefs than the Eagles to upset the Seahawks. But
really? Okay. I can see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Chiefs' playoff history. Hasn't been great.
Yes. No, I agree with you. It's an Andy Reid-led team. You never know what's going to happen come postseason.
Yep.
But we've been talking about all the winning teams so far, and it's time to switch it up a little bit, as we've still had the problems with the plumbing. As many times as we called that plumber to come out and fix the pipes, put brand new pipes in, it's just not working. Well, maybe Tesla will come out with new plumbing pipes or something. Like, they come out with everything innovative. They got solar panels. They got shingles now on the roofs. They got cars. I don't know. It's time for the last of the season, sadly, the toilet bowl matchup. Now, it's really sad to see this go away, as I've always loved this segment that we've had, but it's time to come to an end. Maybe it'll come back for the NBA. You don't know. There could be a possibility. Maybe the Hawks and the Warriors play each other, or the Knicks and the Warriors want to play each other at some point. I maybe can't say the Warriors because they beat Houston Christmas Day, but record-wise, could be a chance. As this week, it's the Cleveland Browns going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I personally didn't expect the Browns to be in this predicament of being this incompetent and the team just not knowing what to do. I personally didn't see that, but I saw the Bengals being the worst team in the NFL. That was one thing I could at least hang my hat on. For some reason, I thought that they'd be the worst. I don't know why, but I guess my mind was right about one thing for once. Now, I do believe the Browns will pull this off, but since they've been so wildly inconsistent, I can't count out the Bengals either. Is that crazy to believe?
I think that, what do the Bengals have to gain from winning this game?
They already clinched the number one spot for the draft. It's like, why not try to win now?
Oh, well, if they've already clinched it, yeah, I mean, go ahead and go try and get that second win of the season. You know, 2-14 is better than 1-15, I suppose. But I think that I don't think anyone wants to lose to the worst team in the NFL, and especially not Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to also take Cleveland in this game. I think that they're just a better team, and I don't care how much the Bengals want to squirm and try to get their second win of the game. Their defense is so bad. I'll say this every week. Their defense is terrible, and hopefully next year I won't have to say this every week. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to take Cleveland in this game.
Well, I mean, the Bengals, I almost guarantee they're going to end up taking Burrows. I don't think they're going to go for Chase Young, the number 2 pick. And that should have been the Giants' pick, but the Giants decided to end up winning 41-35 in overtime. Daniel Jones is like, wait, these games don't matter anymore? Okay, let me show you what I was drafted to become. All right, I got this. Oh, it's against Washington. Psh, easy. Get out of here, kid. It's tough to see where Chase Young is, because if you look at the 49ers' success, I'm just going to mention them because they were a team just like the Bengals, where they had a couple offensive pieces. Like, he had a solid running back, Carlos Hyde. The receiving core wasn't awful. It was okay. Offensive line was putrid, and the defense was blah. I think that's the best way to describe it. You have any other words you could describe it with?
No, I think blah is a good,
blah, yeah.
a good
We'll leave it right
description.
at that. But they kept drafting defensive linemen. It's if you could build up a front seven that's really solid, then the other pieces will fill in. And I think that's the way teams have to look to be able to be successful now with today's offense, with how modern it is, with the RPOs. I think it's the best way to be able to get things done. And I just don't see the Bengals wanting to go that way. They're going to say, yeah, screw it, we want a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
Not just a mediocre quarterback that could get the job done while we try to build up a great defense. Nah, forget Andy Dalton. We got Ryan Finley. Duh. Greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they wouldn't be smart to pass on a player like Burrows, but quarterback is the most important position on that offense. So
Yeah, it is.
But I mean,
But what wins championships?
Well, defense and offensive lines.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
that definitely is true.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would. Me personally, if I'm building a team, I'm going to start with the offensive line, because you got any quarterback that's in the NFL, he's there because he has talent. So if you can have enough time to block for him, odds are they can play pretty decent football. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean,
and also, since Calvin isn't on the show, I'm just going to do his pick for him. And
he picks the Bengals.
Yeah.
No.
I was actually thinking about that, but no, I know Calvin realistically, he'll choose the Browns. But we'll just say on the show, you're picking the Bengals, Calvin. That's what you get for not being on the show today. That's your punishment. You're going with the Bengals. I don't think it affects your record at all. I'll go over it at the end, and we'll talk about it next week about who ended up with the highest record. I know you won, Calvin, but what's one less?
You won our fantasy league, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, I felt really proud about that because I'll I'll admit I forgot to check my lineup, and Derrick Henry was out, and I didn't know that. So I ended up winning without Derrick Henry, and that was a little surprising.
There you
And I
go.
was also the one who drafted Antonio Brown, and I never dropped him. I never wanted to drop Antonio Brown. I kept saying I want to win it all, and I want AB on my team to show I did this with a handicap.
But speaking of Antonio Brown, do you think the Saints sign him?
Yeah, I do. I can see it happening because they ended up getting Des Bryant last year. They tried that.
Yeah.
They ended up getting Brandon Marshall. He just didn't pan out. And
But Des Bryant wasn't being investigated by the NFL and
no,
have all
but that's
this.
the whole thing. They could sign him, and let's just say he goes on the commissioner's exempt list. Well, it's week 17. Let it go by, and if the Saints do end up getting a bye week on whatever their matchups are, if there is a possibility of that, they get a bye week. Well, Antonio Brown's ready for whatever for the divisional game is. He's ready. So there's a possibility of that happening, and I can see it. I can see that just because the Saints want to get better in all aspects. I mean, their defense has started to crumble down a little bit.
Yeah.
So they're looking real heavy on the offensive end, and also with Kamara, you never know how healthy he's going to stay. You really don't want to give him the ball as much as a team would like to with his talent, but you have to really focus on Drew Brees because the dude wants to still sling it. He's a gunslinger, and he's an accurate gunslinger, not like Jameis Winston, which is interesting. I want to at least throw this out. I know we're getting a little off topic here, and you know what? That's a Three Bros Sports podcast, and if you don't like it, I don't know what else to tell you, buddy. You could tune into the TV Delmarva show where we go all over NBA. We could do that for you for hours on end. But there's a possibility that he does go to the Saints. Jameis Winston's almost at 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. It's a high possibility. I mean, I don't get Jameis Winston. I really don't. But he's going to stay as the quarterback next year.
It's been an interesting year for sure.
It really has.
People getting hit in the head with helmets. That was probably my highlight of the year.
Yeah, that is. And on tomorrow's show on TV Delmarva, we're going to go over some of our biggest highlights of the 2019 season. So you may want to stick tuned for that. As Brett gave you a little bit of a cliffhanger. He gave you one little snippet. We'll get into more later on because it's going to be. We're going to post this episode tonight, and then the show's tomorrow. So all the early viewers got the early snippet of what we're going to be talking about. And now we got to end it off with the most important game of the NFL season for the NFC and for me and my heart, as my heart has been beating red and gold so far. I know our blood is red, but now the gold's been injected in, as the 49ers are actually a good team now. I don't get it, but we're a good team now, as we're going up against the that's my sound effect for the Seahawks. The Seahawks. Pete Carroll. Russell Wilson. Now Marshawn Lynch is back. What the hell? Why are they trying to do this to my 49ers? They're trying to play upset. I mean, Marshawn Lynch came into Seattle with a limo full of Skittles. Beast mode is back. And it scares the bejesus out of me. Now, the 49ers are still favored to win this game, surprisingly. And this is at Seattle. And normally all the home teams are favored just +3. They always have the +3 added on. Still, for the 49ers to be have the odds to be able to win. Are you buying that or no?
I'm buying that. I would take, I don't think you'd be crazy to take the 49ers in this game. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the 49ers. I'll support your team this week.
Dang it, Brett. Now you jinxed it. I'm kidding.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. No, but I just think that the 49ers are a good team, and Seattle struggled against Arizona last week, so I think that it's definitely not impossible for them to win. And I don't think that signing Marshawn Lynch, who hasn't played football in a year and a half.
Yeah, but the dude's a freak. Like, come on.
Dude's
Like,
a freak.
it's impossible to take him down. And if he got fatter, he added like 20 more pounds on him, crap, then it's tougher for Nick Bosa to take him down.
Yeah, but you got to get back into getting hit by NFL players.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
So,
And now, I think the 49ers will win this game too. And now let me at least get into reasonings. So, for any professional sport team that has a tragedy, they always come back and win it all. The Boston bombing. Red Sox won the World Series. The floods throughout Houston. The Astros they made it far. I don't think that was they didn't win it all, but they made it far that year. Now the 49ers backup quarterback CJ Beathard, his brother was stabbed at a Nashville bar, and the post-game speech given by Kyle Shanahan gave that sense of feeling of this team is now real motivated, of they kind of understand what they're really playing for now, that this is just a game that life or death. These situations always happen. It just puts everybody into a real perspective of the way that their lives are being played out. And it just gives me that feeling of like this team is just like rejuvenated. Like they now have like a burning passion to go for. As CJ Beathard's brother was a huge 49er fan as well, supported the team all the time. They're kind of playing for him now. So they have that little chip on their shoulder to be able to pull this off. I really think that there's a chance that they come in and they blow Seattle out of the water.
Look at you, tugging at the audience's heartstrings.
I'm telling you, I really believe the 49ers are going to – this will be a blowout game. This isn't some close neck-and-neck score. I guarantee I'm going to say this now, but when I watch the game Sunday, I guarantee it's going to be like a close game. But I think there's that chip on their shoulder right now. They're fighting for CJ's brother. This is going to be a real intense game, as if this is the Super Bowl. That's how this game is going to be played out, as both sides have a chip on their shoulder. Adding Marshawn Lynch back, the Seahawks have said that, oh, we feel so much better now. Like, kind of like there's this extra vibe in the locker room. Things are feeling great. But, I don't know. I see the 49ers pulling this off, and I see them having their bye week, as it's so crucial for this team to have a bye week. With all the injuries they have, Quan Alexander, star linebacker, signed a 4-year, $54 million deal at the beginning of the year. If the 49ers make it to the NL, wrong sport. If they make it to the NFC Championship, he may come back. J.J. Watt is coming back from the torn pec, and that's what Quan Alexander had. So this 49er defense could actually get back to their full strength, almost. They're close. But who knows? And since Calvin's not here, since Calvin's a Cardinals fan and he hates both teams, he's going to go for the 49ers as well. Just because. You're welcome, Calvin. And that's going to end up being the show. Or that's going to wrap things up for today's podcast. I'll edit that out. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's been a little different without Calvin today, but me and Brad, I think we did a really good job backing it up. We kept the time up.
I think when we do our exit and we say our names, we should do a pause. So then when Calvin's listening, he can say to himself, "I'm Calvin."
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay.
All right.
So
we're looking out for you, buddy.
we're being good friends. That's gonna do it for today's episode. I'm Connor.
And I'm Brett.
Thank you for tuning in, and we will be catching you on TV Delmarva tomorrow, and also we'll be back next week. Have a good one.
Shut up and sit down.
Rebro Sports would like to thank Anchor FM for sponsoring this podcast and Benjamin Tissot on bensound.com for the amazing intro, outro music.